welcome to this CloudCoCo security podcast that we've entitled The Weakness Within. My name is Mark Wainwright, and I am a security overlay here at CloudCoCo, and I am joined today by KnowBe4's lead security awareness advocate, Javvad Malik. Welcome, Javvad, to the call.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
It is great to have you with us. And Javvad, I am looking forward to chatting with you over a subject that continues to be a key component to any security strategy. But before we get to that, it would be good to give those listening to the podcast a bit of a background about yourself and how you ended up being in your current role.
My career, as my hair gets grayer, it becomes harder to disguise my age. But I've been in the cybersecurity, well, it was known as IT security, information security, since about '99. It was my first role straight out of university. And at that time, I worked for a large bank in the UK, and the whole IT security team was probably about 6 people. That same bank today probably has about 200 people covering cybersecurity in some way, shape, or form. So I was there when the industry where you mainly reset passwords and gave permissions to people and what have you. But then as that evolved over time, as we became more reliant on digital services, from there, I moved a bit into sort of like consulting, contracting for a while, because it was easier than keeping up to date with all my technical skills, and the money was better. And then from there, I became an industry analyst for a while, and then I moved into vendor land. And then I ended up here at KnowBe4, being one of their security advocates.
And your role there at KnowBe4, what's a typical day look like, or a typical week?
Typical day, week. So a lot of it is keeping up to date with trends. So every day there's many stories. So just seeing what happened, what caused them, what are any learnings we could take from them. So there's a lot of like research being done on a daily basis. We do like webinars and podcasts or educational sessions like this one. There's a lot of writing that goes into the job. There's a lot of presenting. So it's very much an external facing role. I'm not in a sales role or a marketing role. It's more just like looking at the industry, looking at what some of the trends are, looking at what we can as an industry do to better ourselves and help the clients that we serve.
Excellent. Okay, well, I do want to talk about KnowBe4, and we'll certainly come back to that and look at that in more detail. But I'm looking at and certainly I want to look at how KnowBe4 is responding to the kind of the weakness within and the security training, and how that can be advantageous to a business looking at defending against that. But I guess my first question to you is why is a business at risk from the weakness within? You know, what do we, when we talk about the weaknesses within, what do we mean by that? We're all very mindful, of course, about the outsider threat and stopping the baddies from being able to get inside. But when we talk about the weakness within, that's a bit of a shift. Is that so? What do we understand by that?
Yeah, so I think like historically in the 90s and early 2000s, there was this they call it the M&M model, where it's like a hard, crispy exterior and a soft interior, and that worked well for many years, especially when everyone was working within an office and everyone had corporate issued devices. But then over years, you've seen that really change. So with people wanting to bring their own devices or work from their phones or tablets, work from home, and then also, that whole perimeter changed. So now you've got controls that are very traditional in that sense there, and on devices where you can't even maybe implement controls. So while the technologies have adapted, and now we've got some quite good technologies that can help us, criminals are like, okay, what's the easiest way for us to attack this organization? And criminals work like any other business. They want to put in the least amount of effort for the most amount of reward. And trying to bypass a well architected security system is really difficult. It's not like the early days where you could easily deface a website and or SQL injection would get you into like your customer data. I mean, it still happens, but it's very difficult. So the best way to actually break into an organization, the favored 8 out of 10 criminals will attest to it if you've done a survey, is to try and find a weakness in the process of the organization or try to exploit people through social engineering. And that is the most effective. Why spend time trying to crack some algorithm that you're not, or encryption that you're not going to be able to decrypt, when you can easily phone someone up and say, hello, I'm your CEO. I need you to make payment of 5 million to our new supplier in Eastern Europe. And if they do it, then that's job done.
So yeah, and that sounds kind of risky at that point, certainly. But what's how would then security awareness training assist with that? Certainly, if we're looking at things like phishing campaigns and certainly social engineering that you've just referred to, how does that improve the way that we're able to protect ourselves then?
Yeah. So when you speak to boxers normally, they normally say if they get knocked out, it's not the hardest punch that knocks them out, it's the one that they didn't see coming that does the most damage. And this is what we see with humans as a whole. If you're not aware of something, you're not going to look out for it. You're not going to be just conscious of it. Back in the early 80s, people would get so happy if they received something to the letterbox saying you've won a holiday to the Caribbean, and here, just call up this premium rate number to claim your prize. And so many people used to fall for it. Nowadays, everyone looks at it and says, oh, this is just a scam, and they throw it in the bin. But there was a time where the awareness wasn't there, and therefore the behavior need to change. So when we let people know that, hey, there's a risk, it's like sometimes you drive down a nice country road and there's a sign up there saying, like, just the other day I was out somewhere and it said like 1 fatality in the last 3 years. And so suddenly you're aware that, oh, this is actually, it looks like a nice road, but it's a dangerous road.
Yeah.
So when we train people, when we let them know that, okay, criminals are going to come after you and they might send you a phishing email, and then we show them, here's what a phishing email looks like. We will send it to them and say, and if they spot it and they report it, fantastic. If they don't, then we can show them, like, okay, here are some of the things you can look out for. And, we're not trying to make everyone a security expert. I think that's where some people go wrong. That's not the intention. The intention is like, let people know there's threats. And if they see something that looks like a threat, here's how you report it to your security team so they can investigate it fully.
So it wasn't long ago when I received an email from supposedly from the DVLA, and they told me that I had been caught speeding in Swinton and needed to pay the fine. And of course, I had this kind of holy anger rising up within me that said, I've not been to Swinton for years. It couldn't have been me. Unfortunately, within the email, there was a link that provided photographic evidence that proved it was you, or clearly it wasn't me. I was so close to being quite emotional about it was not me. I was not in Swinton at this point. And click on the link, and of course I didn't. I figured it out that it was probably a scam before I clicked on the link. But it's an easy one, I guess, to be able to get you when you're not expecting it, as you say with the boxer. But what type of, I mean, we went through a period of time when there was a lot of COVID emails coming out. But what are the type of emails that are doing the rounds at the moment? What are the trends of these type of phishing emails?
So they will adapt to whatever there's popular at the moment in time. So when the Football World Cup was on, there was lots of football related ones. The unfortunate earthquake in Turkey and Syria, we see lots of those ones going out. Just this week, depending on when you're listening to it, but Silicon Valley Bank went under, and we're seeing it's almost immediately, as soon as the news breaks, there's emails going out, phishing emails claiming to be service providers helping you to move your money out, making sure to protect your assets and all that kind of stuff. So whenever there's a topical story, we see these templates change on the fly almost. So that will always be the case. Other than that, we see a lot of social media type of attacks. LinkedIn is probably one of the most popular ones, just from a business perspective. So you have a new connection request, or there's an email in your inbox, and you click on it and it takes you through to a login page, and they can steal your credentials. Then there's all the standard traditional ones. There's the employment scam ones, like, have you been laid off? We can offer you an easy work from home or sort of thing. Or There's the romance scams, which are like age long. So there's a core bunch of traditional ones, and then there's the ones that are always changing based on what the latest news stories are, and they adapt and they change, but fundamentally they're all the same. And like you mentioned in your example, the objective is to get an emotional reaction out of you.
Yeah.
Because if you can make someone angry or desperate for money, or you can appeal to their ego, or fill that void of love that they need, then you sort of like bypass that critical thinking aspect that people have. Daniel Kahneman, he's a Nobel Award winner, and he wrote a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and he describes these as like two different parts of thinking. Like, your brain is kind of lazy and it wants to take shortcuts, so it'll try to do fast thinking a lot of time, and this is what happens when you get emotional. You just bypass your critical thinking part and you just immediately want to react, and that's what criminals rely on.
And the purpose behind that, I mean, a lot of people talk about ransomware, and that's certainly one of the big areas that organizations that I speak to, that's what's keeping them awake at night, is the risk of ransomware and not having availability to data. But that's not just the issue here, is it? It's a case of stealing information and then being able to use that information elsewhere, maybe credential stuffing or access to other services.
Yeah. I mean, these criminal and ransomware is not how it was like 5 years ago. It's not just about coming in and encrypting your data and then demanding a ransom. These operators are spending longer in victim environments, so they're seeing what is the most valuable data. They're stealing a whole bunch of data, and then they're encrypting you with ransomware. And then if you do pay them for the decryption key, they say, well, okay, we've also got your data, so pay us again, or we're going to release it. And this is something actually just last week I saw that there was a hospital in Pennsylvania and they got hit by ransomware and they didn't pay up. And so the criminals released sort of like compromising nude pictures of chemotherapy patients from the hospital that they'd stolen. And you can imagine the sort of like trauma that it must have caused some of these people if they ended up seeing, or their families saw this. So criminals are going to more and more sinking to lower depths, just to sort of like force the hand of people to pay the ransom.
Scrupulous at that point as well. And have we seen an increase? I mean, a lot of this stuff gets caught in spam filters and goes into junk box and so forth. But is there just a general increase in the number of phishing emails that's coming around?
Yeah, there's no decrease at all, and phishing, like when you go through like any like threat intel reports, if you go through any, like pick any 10, you'll probably find between 6 to 8 or 9 of them. The preferred method is phishing, and this is used by your average individual criminal or board hacker even. It's used by organized crime gangs. It's even used by nation states. It is like, and when you look back at most of these big incidents, there's an element of phishing or other similar social engineering that takes place in that.
And I guess it's not just phishing, the general wide individual email that goes out that says you've been caught speeding in Swinton, and maybe somebody clicks on it, but it's actually quite targeted as well, and the kind of spear phishing we're seeing. And I get a bit of an example of that. A few years ago, I was trying to explain to my son, who was doing a GCSE in IT at that point, that the risks of putting too much information on his social media. And we went through a process. Not going to explain the process, but we went through a process of finding somebody who was at a well-known company on LinkedIn. We found the same person who was on Facebook. Found details to his family favorite sports team. Careful what I'm saying here, but sports team. I also got access to where he went to school, because he put that on there. Was then able to go into the school, find some details about them. And if I'd have been unscrupulous and that sort of type, you could send an email to him to say, I'm from your school, well done for what you've achieved. Would you like to come and spend some time with our business students and so forth? And here's a link to this, is the sort of stuff we've done before. So it's kind of, spear phishing is becoming increasingly easier to be able to do, because the amount of information that we leave behind us in a trail, that people can just pick up snippets and say that's relevant, it's interesting, and even things like I guess Twitter, people you follow on Twitter gives you an idea of your type of interests that you've got, who you follow, what you're interested in, and so forth. It kind of makes it easy, doesn't it, for the cyber criminals to be able to target us.
It's so easy now, and there's more and more tools to help criminals automate this as well. So you can go through, it will help you like build up almost like an org chart. I mean, the joke is like they criminals, if they're targeting someone, they probably know more about your company than you know about your company. They'll know what your org chart looks like, who reports to who, what IT assets you have, and everything. We've heard stories of people just going in for interviews just for the purpose of finding out what software they use and everything. So this sort of thing is just, and we leave so much data out there, and it doesn't even need to be direct data. It's like even one of my former bosses, she used to call it the chemistry of data, that on a standalone bit, a single bit of information might not mean much, but when you combine it with other bits of data that don't mean much, it actually means an awful lot.
Yeah, a lot more, and certainly when you start putting that into a context as well.
Yeah,
we do seem to make life easy for them. So just looking generally at security awareness training. So we've talked about the issues that you've got, and that we contribute in some part to that as well, individually. But if we're looking at a security awareness training program itself, then what would be the key components that would be included in that?
so the key components from a platform is you need some form of phishing. Simulated phishing is always really key, because I think nothing teaches people better than actually interacting with something, and that's what a phishing email is. So you need some form of phishing. You need a good library of training materials to support that, because there's no point in just saying, oh, we phished you, but you want people to learn, and you want that to be in different formats. So some people like to read stuff or see posters, other want to watch videos, whatever. So you want enough library and enough variety so that you can address the same issue in different ways. People aren't going to watch the same short video 6 times in a year just to learn an issue. They want to watch something with a bit of variety. So I think having that library is important. And the third way is to have a really easy way for people to report anything that they see as dodgy. So the last thing you want your people to do is like, oh, if you think that this is a phishing email, then raise an IT ticket and do that. And they're going to be like, this is just too much hard work. It's like they want a simple way where they can just say, off you go. Can you help me out, security team? And they can come back. So I think that those are some of the key components of like having a good security awareness program. There are other bits you can add on to it, I suppose, like the tools for admins to help like go through if they're getting lots and lots of these reported phishing emails, how they can go through them and automate some of that process as well. But also from a softer side, I think before you even send your first phishing email, it's also important for the security team to understand what kind of relationship they have with their colleagues, because the last thing you want to do is have people feel like, oh, they're being caught out, or they're being tricked, or their time's being wasted. So, a good security awareness program, I say, always begins with building good relations with your colleagues and saying, okay, here are some of the risks, and we're planning on doing some things around it. And this is all to help us work together and make the organization more secure. It's not a personal attack against individuals.
No, that's a great point. What do you how do you effectively measure a security awareness training program then? What key components of that?
Yeah, so one of the places where most organizations start off from is to do a baseline phishing test. So that's like you send out a phishing email to everyone, and this is before you've given them any formal training, and you see, okay, what percentage of people are going to click on this link or fall for this phishing email, and that will give you a good indication. And then you repeat that test like quarterly, and you see, okay, how is that percentage changing? And if you're giving regular training and everything, that should come down. And all the figures support that if you're giving good quality training and you're regularly testing people, that will come down drastically. the other measure that I think you can look at internally, which is really important, is how many reports are coming in from your users. Because if they're reporting stuff, that's a great thing. That's what you want to build, a culture where people feel comfortable enough to report things, say, hey, this is a phishing email or a smishing email text that they've got, or they say, I saw a stranger in the office without a lanyard, or I saw like all these workstations that were unlocked and no one was there. So these are the things that you really want to capture, and that is like a super powerful metric.
And that's interesting as well. We talk about security awareness training, or we think of it being around a lot of email coming through and not clicking on links on emails, but there's a whole raft of different ways in which issues can occur and problems can be created. You mentioned there, Javvad, about quarterly phishing campaigns going through. Is that what you recommend? Would it be monthly, quarterly, weekly for some people, depending upon if they've kind of made, can we say, mistakes in the past? What's the frequency really? What should that be?
Yeah, so typically we've seen the organizations that have the best results. So across all of our customers, there's more than 50,000 around the world organizations. So there's millions and millions of users here. So what the data suggests is that when you do an initial phishing campaign, the baseline for most organizations is around 30 to 35%, somewhere around that, depending on your industry and maturity. If you do monthly security awareness training or monthly sort of phishing campaigns and have regular in between messages that you're reinforcing, within 12 months, that should go down to below 5%.
Okay.
So monthly is kind of like the sweet spot, is the aggressive spot of it. Now, a lot of this then it comes down to a bit of tailoring as well, depending on your organization and how big you are and where your risks actually lie. Because phishing emails as well, you need to think of them as like, okay, what behaviors are we actually trying to address and change here? So if you're an organization where you get a lot of phishing emails that are trying to steal your credit card information, then those are kind of like the phishing templates you want to use. Or if you're getting a lot of social media ones, then those are kinds of ones. So there's certain behaviors that you're trying to target and change and measure those over a period of time. Sometimes, I mean, and in our platform, you can create what smart groups as well. So you can integrate with AD, so you pull in all your department information as well. But you can also create smart groups. So if you see certain people are more risky, so say some people, they travel a lot, they're your road warriors or whatever, then maybe you want to give them a different type of training or more type of training, because they're more likely to be distracted or in environments where they're not, if you're traveling, you got off a plane, you're in a cab and you get an email on your phone, you're distracted, then you're probably more likely to fall for that phishing email than if you're just sat in your office in your normal environment. So you can tailor it and tweak it according to who your users are and what the risk is.
Okay, can I just come back to a point you made earlier, which I think is really important just to go for again. You said that when somebody does a baseline check of a phishing test, it's around 30 to 35% of users will actually click on the emails. That seems a staggeringly high number. That kind of one in, three out of 10 people who receive an email will click on a link that could cause an issue. Is it really that high? Because that just seems staggering.
It really is that high. The reality is, like, a lot of the general phishing emails, like you said earlier, they get caught by mail filters or spam folders, but there is a percentage that get through. And I think what a lot of people are just in that sort of like, they think that the technology will do everything for them. They think that they've seen emails going to their spam folder, so they think, and a lot of people are under this illusion that, well, I'm not important enough in the organization to be targeted. Whereas that has nothing to do with it. People just want access into your organization. So usually this is the first time they've got a phishing email. They're not used to the organization doing such activities or what have you. So it's like this. It's like when you go to a foreign country and they drive on the wrong side of the road, and you step out onto the road to cross, and you almost get run over because you're looking the wrong way. So that's why, like, in London, especially, like, you go there in central London where they know there's lots of tourists. On the floor they've written, like, look right, look left, so
Yeah.
that tourists know which way to expect cars coming. And this is what the training does. It just nudges people. It informs people that, look, the danger is not over there, it's over there. So look over there. And it's just something like, even if you know that, when you're in a foreign land, they drive on the other side of the road, your habits are such that you're just going to look that way and you're going to step out. And so it takes time to just change some of those habits and behaviors.
Okay. So a typical behavior that we've done, I guess, in organizations the last 20 years that another 25 years now that I've been within IT of sorts, is that we've looked for point solutions to be able to try and protect. Started with firewalls, and then it went to antivirus, and then we put extra things as we've gone along to try and mitigate the risks and the threats that are there at that time. What impact can security awareness training have upon a wider security posture that an organization has?
So I think it's one of the key aspects now. It's about building not just individuals to a better behavior, but it's about changing the overall culture of an organization, and hopefully for that to extend even into people's personal lives at home, because this is like a joint thing. I mean, we heard, like, who was it? LastPass recently. One of their breaches was because an employee was working from home on his home machine, and they had Plex, which was running outdated software, and that's what caused the vulnerability and what have you. And you think, okay, when they're in work and they're on their work machine and they're used to IT just patching their system, updating all the software and what have you, but they're not carrying that behavior to home. So we want them to carry these secure behaviors with them wherever they are, and embed it so that it's kind of like a social norm. That's where we want to get it to. So even now, if you go on the train or you go to an airport, you probably, like me, you probably, like, cringe when you see someone leave their laptop unlocked and they go off to get a tea or a coffee or to the toilet, and sometimes it's like they get back and, like, you can, like, have that conversation sometimes, and that's sometimes really useful. Like, okay, I don't know what you're working on, but there's more information there than you probably think. So it's until we get to that stage, I think our work is still there to be done.
Okay, so let's look at KnowBe4 now. You work for that organization that provides the security awareness training and other things as well. Let me just ask you just some rapid questions to begin with, just to give a bit of background for everybody who's listening, just to be able to better understand a little bit more about KnowBe4 as a business. So what are the key components of KnowBe4, firstly?
So key components are simulated phishing platform. Got a massive library of phishing templates within there. There's over 25,000. All of them are fully customizable. You can schedule all of your campaign for the next year or something. So literally, like, within a couple of hours, you can schedule everything, and that's automated and that's off and running for you. So that will go off and do your phishing on a regular basis and build up your risk profile and what have you. And it gives you all the stats and metrics on the back of that. There's a huge library of content. There's in every format, and a lot of the content is localized and translated for local markets as well around the world. Not all the content, but all the key components are. There's a part called PhishER, which is an admin tool, which is basically it's kind of like a lightweight SOC for phishing. So whenever anyone reports a phishing email, it goes in there. It can group together all the so if, like, 10 people reported the same email as a phish, it can group them together, and it allows the admin to do some quick forensic analysis on it, determine whether it's clean or not. You can then push it back if it's clean and say, thanks for reporting, but this is not a phishing email. It's probably just a marketing email that looked dodgy. Or they can say, oh, this is a phishing email. And then it allows them to search everyone's inbox. And if they see that email in anyone else's inbox, it can rip it out of that immediately. So
Okay.
before the user has a chance to even interact with it, the admin team has ripped it out. And then what one of my favorite features is they can take that malicious email, they can strip out all the maliciousness and turn it into a phishing template, and then use that for training. So they
Okay.
can send that out to everyone and say, would you fall for it? And then later say to them, this was an actual phishing email our organization received. So this isn't something we've made up. And then from the user point of view, there's a phish alert button that we provide, which integrates into Outlook or Gmail. And it's just a button that sits in the browser or the client. And if you receive an email that you think is phishing, you just click it and it removes it and it sends it to the admin. So this goes into PhishER or to a inbox somewhere. And then the user doesn't have to worry. They don't have to raise a ticket. They don't have to do anything. It's just gone from their inbox. It's out of sight, out of mind. And then the people with the tools and everything, they can investigate it properly, and then they can send it back if need be.
Okay. There's a lot of alternative companies out there providing something similar, security awareness training. So how would you say KnowBe4 differentiates itself from other such companies?
So KnowBe4 is the largest provider in this space in the world. And also what we do is that we don't focus anything on tech. Everything that we do is for the human. So we don't play in the blocking and tackling game of spam filters or gateway controls or anything like that. We think there are lots of well-established and good players out there. So we're really here just for the human. And our core mission is to help people make better risk decisions. So that's the core focus on it. Because of that, the platform is super focused just on being usable and for people. The library of content is continuously being updated. So the idea, one of the ideas that if you see the same bit of content twice, it's going to start feeling stale. So we understand that you need to keep getting fresh content and new updates. And for this, we actually brought out several content creation companies around the world who make actual shows for us. So there's a show called The Inside Man, which is on KnowBe4. It's like a Netflix drama. So there's episodes and there's seasons and there's a massive story arc, and people are really, really engaged in it. And through that process, they learn a bit about security awareness. So it's kind of like one of those binge-worthy, and lots of our customers binge the content. So the ease of usability and just having great content makes it something that's quite unique in the market.
And you mentioned earlier, but I'm not sure I quite caught it, the number of templates that you've got. Was that 20 into certainly thousands and thousands of different templates?
Over 25,000. It's templates there, and they're all in different categories. And then there's a community there as well you can be part of and share templates with each other, or you can just customize them all yourself. So there's no reason for if you're based in the UK, you don't need to receive a template that's specific for a North American audience. You can tailor it, you can make it for local businesses and what have you.
Okay, that's great. And the type of vertical markets that you work with?
All of them. So it's when KnowBe4 started off, they deliberately took the approach of starting from SMB and working their way up. And as a result, they're able to learn a lot from their customers and what worked and what didn't work, and take on board that feedback loop. And they actually went quite broad. So we operate in every industry vertical and now every size of organization. So you've got the super large enterprises, all the way down to 10 people organizations. It scales extremely, extremely well, and it's relevant for every industry as well.
Okay, so one of the things that obviously you mentioned PhishER, and there's a whole other number of different type of features, functions, and areas that you have available to you. But one of the things that I've noticed recently that's come out is this whole subject of HDR. So we're familiar within IT about different type of DRs. You've got MDR, you've got XDR, you've got EDR, NDR. Do you want to just tell us and give us a bit of an update about what HDR is?
So HDR stands for Human Detection and Response. So it's about having your humans, your colleagues, as part of your detection and response stack. And a lot of that is down to people are far better at often spotting things or when something's wrong. Like, before your technologies can even detect something, a person is probably more adept at saying, well, you know what, my machine is taking just like a bit longer to boot up, or the windows are taking a bit longer to open, or it's lagging a bit, or there's something weird, or someone contacted me on Slack and it doesn't seem like HR, but they're claiming to be from HR. So these are the skills that like we really need to develop in people, and this forms a core part of the HDR story. We saw that in the Reddit breach recently. So someone fell for a smishing attack. So they were sent a text message and they were saying like, send us your 2FA code. And you should never send your 2FA code, but and 2FA MFA is really a really good technical control. But if someone gives up their code, then that whole protection's gone. But this person gave up their code, but then they immediately realized, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. And they reported it to their IT teams. And as a result, they were able to lock down the account and, contain the incident really, really quickly. Now, had they just relied on their technology controls to do that, that might have taken 6 months, 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, who knows how long it would have taken for the criminals to trigger something that would have, alerted someone in a SOC. And then even then, how quickly or how thoroughly does every alert get investigated in a SOC? And it is low, but when a human reports something, that's normally quite a high confidence thing. So someone says, hey, I've just given up my 2FA code. That's a very big red flag. So okay, you can respond to that quickly and efficiently, and this is what we're trying to build. It is part of that security culture that we talk about. It's like bringing everyone in. We need to shed this old way of thinking that humans are the weakest link or users are stupid, quote unquote. We need to really build it into that. These are our colleagues. These are really intelligent people, and if we're not leveraging them and if we're not helping them, then we're really missing out on a key part of our defensive strategy.
Okay, fantastic. And if somebody wants to trial and to test KnowBe4, that's all available?
That is absolutely available. They can get in touch with yourselves, or they can go to KnowBe4 directly. The pricing's on the website. You can sign up for a demo. I strongly recommend like getting in touch with someone like CloudCoCo, going through a demo, and seeing what features are there, because like any platform, there's probably like more features there than you actually need to start with. So talk to someone and say, okay, this is the kind of organization I have. This is my objectives. This is what I want to do, and someone can take you through on a demo all the key features that are probably the most relevant to you, and then you can trial it out, kick the tires, do whatever you want, and I'm confident that well, most people end up buying after that anyway.
Certainly, if it shows 30 to 35% click rate through, that would scare most people, I would think. So finally, Javvad, what advice would you have for a business that is considering security awareness training to make the most out of the solution that they choose?
So I think there's two things. I think one is implement a product like this for the right reasons. Don't just do it because everyone's saying you need to do it, but look at your organization, look at where your risks actually are, and identify where the human risks are. And then whenever you get the product, you can then use that to measure how effective you are at reducing that risk. At the end of the day, everything we do is to reduce risk. So get the product for the right reasons, and then use the product features in the recommended way. So set up your year's campaign, do your baseline test, do repeat training, and you really use the variety of content that's available on the platform, and build those relations with your colleagues. And guaranteed you will see your risk go down, you'll see the behaviors improve, and you'll see the amount of reporting of incidents go up as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Javvad. I have thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to be able to just chat with you today, and I'm sure those listening, whenever that may be, will also be very much appreciative of you taking the time as well for that. And if you have been listening, and if you are interested in taking a trial or having a demonstration of KnowBe4, or if you'd like to discuss generally anything about how you can protect against the weakness within your environment, then please do make contact to us. We would love to hear from you. But for now, thanks for joining. Bye-bye.